Welcome to the Breaking 90 podcast, where we talk about all things sustainable fat loss. We take people on 90-day journeys to creating fat loss forever. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy the episode.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Breaking 90 podcast. I'm your host, Alex Harriman, here with my co-host, Kelly Sarlo. We are two of the coaches of Breaking 90 Fitness. Thanks for being here. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Hey, Kelly.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
I have the jitters.
Okay.
We're running Spartan.
Uh-huh.
And I know this is going to air after we've ran, but I got like the nervous stomach already.
Do you?
Yeah.
I get that at the beginning of every like really physically demanding competition. Like I've got a pickleball tournament tomorrow that I won't get that for. But if it's something like Spartan or like a firefighter competition or something, I always get that, but it's usually the morning of.
Okay.
But that's good. Like I think that that's essential. Like if you don't care at all that you don't get that, then like why are you even doing it?
Okay. This is good for me to hear because, like, as you know, I've shared this with you personally. Like, as soon as there's a timer, my whole body is just like anxious. I have to go to the washroom. I'm so nervous. But it's starting like 8 days in advance.
Yeah, that's probably just like because you and I have both talked about this, like we've kind of undertrained for this event, right? And so that's part of that, like not being as prepared as you'd like to be, but it's also the like the beginning of the season race, which is like kind of for you to be like get the rust off and feel like, oh yeah, shit, like I should have done more hills training, or I should do this or that. And then if you decide to run Blue Mountain in October, it kind of tells you where you need to put your focus and attention. So
Yeah.
you got to go into this one with like no expectations. This one's really just to like get your feet wet and start the season.
Okay. That feels better until Devin's present and she's running it in like 40 minutes. And I'm like,
Yeah, and that's fine. She's gonna. I'm not too worried. Like I'll do what I can, and she'll get ahead. She'll get ahead of me for sure.
yeah.
So I'm not too worried about that. Honestly, it's
Well,
not a race. It's amongst others. It's a race for yourself.
yeah, okay. That's actually really cool. And it bleeds right into the topic today about pushing limits. And I think it's just neat to start out this way. Not that I had planned it, just talking about how like this will push my limits in a lot of ways. And I'm also hearing, which might be really cool for listeners, that coaches undertrain sometimes for an event, and that you can still kind of use it as a season opener, push the current limit that you have, develop a baseline, and kind of go from there.
Yeah, and like I have no problem saying that. I think that it's important to always. Have you heard the term gas station ready?
No,
So it's like you and your family get like attacked at a gas station, you have to be ready to defend yourself.
of course you've heard of this. Go ahead.
So like you always need to be ready, but you can't always be optimal at every aspect of health and fitness.
Yeah.
It's impossible. So like if you were always Spartan ready, some other aspect of your health and fitness would suffer.
Okay.
So you always need to be ready. If somebody's like, "Hey, I'll give you $1 million to run a Spartan right now," you need to be able to do that, and you can, and
Mhm.
that's good. Now, when you run the Spartan, you got to say to yourself, "Am I happy with how I performed? Do I want to do better, or is that good enough?" Because like, are you trying to win? Are you trying to better yourself? Are you doing it for fun? Like what's the purpose behind you running the Spartan? Because they require very different levels of output,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So I think that at any given time you should be in the health and fitness and shape that you could do it if it was thrown at you, but maybe not as well as you would like to if you were in your peak or prime, right?
Okay. I
Yeah.
like.
That's what it is. It's like any physical competition or event that's thrown at me at any point, I will be able to do it. It's not gonna, I won't be able to do the best I've ever done because obviously that would require training and prep, but I'll be able to put forth an effort at least.
Neat. Okay. I like where this is going.
Yeah. And that's important even when we're looking at a topic like pushing your limits, because you can every weekend you could do a powerlifting competition this week and a Spartan next weekend. You could do a marathon the weekend after that. Like sooner or later you're pushing and pulling against yourself. You're making your body worse off because of pushing your limits too much.
Mhm.
So you do have to pick and choose, and you have to decide how you're going to train and what you're going to train for and the significance of each event. But I think that things like this, like an occasional Spartan, are necessary to kind of remind you what you're capable of, and that there's still more out there. You still have room for growth and improvement. Like it's you need to humble yourself occasionally.
That's exactly the term I was just thinking about because, when we sat down to record the podcast today, I just made 3 notes for pushing your limits, just wanting to cover like, okay, what does that look like physically, mentally, and emotionally? Because, we can talk about health and fitness for sure, but there's other components that play into that. And I sit here and I think, okay, I hopefully people will draw their own parallel, but I personally struggle with not being the best. Like I want to perfect something, even if the competition is just me. And doing this Spartan race is definitely going to challenge me mentally and emotionally because I know I won't be able to place, in a certain ranking. And that's difficult. Now, you can mentally prep yourself to say, like, I'm going to do my best, I'm going to push my own personal limits. And then the emotional component comes in there going, is it really enough? Is it really your best? And so there's like this push pull that you're talking about where you kind of have to come to a place of acceptance after you've pushed yourself of, okay, here is where I am at. And do I want to improve? Is it worth it? Or is this something that I'm proud of accomplishing and I can move on to something else? Does that make
Or
sense?
that you're just like okay with doing a fun run once a year, and like whatever your score is, your score is. You just want to know that you can still do it.
True. And I think maybe some people will resonate with this. Maybe some people will think I'm batshit crazy, but like I can sit here and say, okay, I'm going to do it just for fun. I want to go run with my friends. I just want to enjoy it. And then the self-talk comes in of like, really, are you just doing it for fun? Is this your version of fun? And like it's all kinds of different internal dialogue that happens. And all of a sudden I'm trying to push for something where I originally didn't sign up for it, with that intention. And
Mm.
it's like bringing myself back to that intention, which I think a lot of people can resonate with in their own personal goals. It doesn't have to be a race, right? Why did I get into this in the first place? And then we get to the point of perfection and we have to come back.
Yeah, and like when I talk about your health and fitness, there's more to it than like the nutrition and physical fitness that you're doing. Like there's your mental health, your stress, your lifestyle that goes along with that. So like could you train for a Spartan to be one of the best? Potentially. Would you have to make massive life sacrifices to do it? Absolutely.
Mm.
Is that worth it to you? Probably not. You have a lot of other stuff going on in your life. You have a business, you have a family, you have other things that rank higher in order of priorities than being one of the best at Spartan at this time. Maybe that'll change at some point. I don't know. But as of right now, I could feel pretty safe saying that's not going to rank high enough on your priority list for you to put in the work necessary to get there. So knowing that, then it's like, okay, then I can push that aside. I'm not going to be the best because that's not a priority to me. So then what a part of this event am I doing to push my limits? Right? And then be okay with that. It's like I don't think any of us should settle. I don't think we should settle for being mediocre. So if you're like you do the race and you're not content with your results, it's okay to push yourself to beat yourself. But until the day comes that you say I want to be one of the best at Spartan, like don't even put that on your scale of where you're trying to get to.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. So may I ask you where you're pushing yourself in your life?
Yeah. It's one of my mentors. I don't know if I necessarily agree with this, but it's certainly I certainly think about it often. So he says that there's kind of three areas where we we grow or we hurt. And so you've got your physical fitness, your business, and then your family and your family and your personal development. And he says at any given time we can grow in two and one suffers.
Yep.
And I think it's true. I think it's true, but I think I say that I think there is opportunity to maintain in the one that's suffering,
Mhm.
which is something that we really preach with our clients. Like it's okay to not run all winter. You can still maintain a level of cardiovascular endurance through the winter and then take off again. It's okay to not always be losing weight. You can lose weight for a bit, maintain for a bit, lose weight for a bit, maintain for a bit. What makes it really freaking hard is if you progress, regress, progress, regress, progress, regress. So instead of looking at it like which one am I going to completely throw in the towel on, it's more like which one am I okay with it maintaining right now
Mhm.
while I progress the other two. Because if we can always do that, progress two and maintain one, you're gonna freaking kill it. Like eventually they're all gonna get super far ahead. I think it's just really being aware of one of them not regressing, because I've seen it many, many times in my own career where any one of those three categories takes a hit at the other two growing, right? And so, like, to be quite honest with you right now, I'd say that if one of them's taking a hit, it's my own health and fitness. And that's coming from a health and fitness coach. Like that's just being candid with you guys. I'm putting a lot of my time, attention, and growth into my business and into my family and my personal development, which I'm content with. Um, and really trying to, like I said, maintain with my health and fitness and be okay with not being in the best shape that I've ever been in, and being okay with not putting up the numbers or results that I have in the past, knowing that I can bounce back when the time is right and shift the focus to health and fitness when the time is right and ease up on one of the other two, which won't be family for me, will have to be my business.
Mhm. This is really neat. So, as most people know who are listening, like I handle a lot of the mindset component of Breaking 90. And I want to ask you, like, if health and fitness is maintenance right now for you, which I think is a beautiful goal. I hope that's not lost on people. How do you then turn into what I know is the most important area of your life is family and decide to push your limits there? What does that look like for you?
It's always like, I think we're either growing or dying. I think that maintenance is like a bit of a make believe, and if we maintain too long, we are probably dying.
Mhm.
So I don't think you can maintain something forever, like your health and fitness, or the same thing applies to being part of a family. It's like you either grow or you die, and things get stale, and days pass and time passes, right? So it's looking for opportunities to challenge yourself and to challenge your loved ones and to be part of something bigger for each other. Yeah, all of this is so cliche and corny, and like I'm not that type of person, but on like we often think about this, my wife and I, like, oh shit, we're sitting here looking at our phones again. You're never gonna look back and be like, oh, I'm so glad I looked at my phone for those 15 minutes. Like, let's take this opportunity to like go for a family walk. Last night it was beautiful out. We're like, we just need to get outside. We have a dog that we don't walk as often because she's a bastard with other dogs. And so we walk our lab a lot because he's good off leash, and we don't walk our husky as much because she goes nuts when she sees other dogs. So we're like, let's take the unloved child for a walk. And it's just like that. It was short. We went out probably for less than a half hour, but it's like that's something that we're gonna feel good about. Or we got outdoors, we had family time, and we all grew as a result, as opposed to dying, as opposed to staying at home, letting our son watch TV while we sit on our phones and our dog doesn't get a walk,
Mhm.
right? That's it. Like it sounds It sounds so minuscule, but guys, this is what Breaking 90 preaches. This is what we're talking about to you every single day. Like, look for an opportunity to be 1% more than you were yesterday. Look for an opportunity to challenge yourself just a little bit, to step outside your comfort zone just a little bit. And like, I don't want you listening to this thinking that I'm completely neglecting my health and fitness, because I'm not. We're still consciously eating healthy. I'm still going to the gym 3 to 4 times per week. I'm still getting out for walks, putting in 10,000 steps. Like, I've got my bare ass minimums that I'm hitting, but I'm not grinding the way I have in the past. I'm not training twice a day. I'm not worried about making my squat 5 pounds heavier. I'm not worried about getting down to 6 pack leanness for summer. Like, I don't really care about that stuff right now. So that's where I see my health and fitness maintaining as a result of growth in the other two areas.
Mhm. That's great. So mentally, I want to check in too, because I know, like, we just talked about growth. I know you read, I know you do courses, all kinds of things. Where would you say, inside and separate from health and fitness, how do you challenge yourself or push your limits mentally?
I've talked about this with our clients before, and I remember you being on the call, but I think a lot of this comes from our self-talk and the way that we look at opportunities. So we can look at most opportunities from a negative lens or a positive lens, and it changes the way we feel about it. If you hate drinking water and you constantly talk about how much you hate water, it makes the act of drinking water that much harder. Part of like getting to a new level with your health and fitness is just finding your inner savage and just doing it sometimes, and f- getting like gritty and finding joy in areas that you never would have found joy before,
Mhm.
right? Like, we talked about, I think the example we talked about on that call was like how close you are to the gym at your house, but you're like on like a really shitty weather day. It's like, "Ah, I don't want to go out there and like get cold and scrape off the car, blah blah blah, all of that." Like, instead, it's like, yeah, like, I can't wait to get out there and like freeze a little bit before I get to the gym, and then I get to sweat. And like, if you start to look at things with that savage lens, it starts to be a positive instead of a negative. It starts to become easier. I promise you. This self-talk, like, the way you look at things is going to have a massive, massive impact on the actions you take on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, it alters your identity, whether I think people realize it or not. Because when, like, as you're reframing, because really you're talking about reframing things, if we're talking psychology here, from a savage perspective, you become the person who braves the cold. You become the person who does the things that you normally, would have talked negatively about. And then each new challenge is like, well, I can conquer this. Why wouldn't I want to do that? I do hard things. Like, this is just one more thing I can rack, under my achievements. It shifts everything because you just default to that way of reframing.
There's so much to be said for like getting uncomfortable. And sometimes it sounds stupid. Like, I know a lot of people will agree or disagree with like the cold showers and the cold plunges, but it's like you're doing something that your body biologically does not want to do, and you're forcing it to, and you're embracing it, and it's making you stronger as a result, regardless of the health benefits or side effects that come along with that activity. You're forcing yourself to get uncomfortable. Delaying gratification, not having that coffee as soon as you wake up in the morning, not sitting on your ass as soon as you wake up in the morning, like forcing yourself to get up and drink water and stretch for 5 minutes before you reward yourself with something like the coffee, and sitting down to read the newspaper or whatever. I don't know if people still read newspaper. That's a bad example.
You're
But
old.
yeah, but like, that's what I'm talking about. Like, that's part of finding that inner savage, and pushing your comfort zone in little ways every day to encourage and optimize growth.
Mhm. I like that you talked about getting uncomfortable because I hear a lot. I won't just say in this industry, but we hear a lot. how it's like, well, that was uncomfortable, so it must not be meant to be, or it must not be the best thing for me because I was a little bit uncomfortable. And it's like, no, that's because you're doing something new, right? Like, I'm sure when you sat down in kindergarten and they put a pencil in your hand, you're like, well, this is awkward. Like, what? This must not, I must not be meant to write. Right. And it's like, no, we're learning a new skill. Your body is adapting to new, cellular memory or what have you. We have to sit in discomfort. And I think we've done a reel about this. Like, you have to kind of be ready to suck at something new to become good. That's what pushing limits is.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. And I know some people listening to this are like, well, I don't want to do that stuff. Like, it doesn't need to be those examples, but you need to give yourself an opportunity for growth, and growth happens with change, and growth happens when you push your comfort zone. So you have to be open to that in some capacity. Um and circling back to the title of this podcast, that pushing limits, or what we called it, like we will often set BAMs for our clients, which you can find countless episodes on where we've talked about that. BAM is your bare ass minimum, that the least you could do to move forward on a rough day, a hard day. So if we look at a scale, you've got your BAM. That's a level you're never going to let yourself go below. You've got your average, which should be somewhere above your BAM, which is like, this is what I hit most of the time. You also need to have an upper ceiling. And the upper ceiling is like your PRs, the best, the best run you've ever had, the most weight you've ever lifted, the longest you've gone without a coffee. Like
What?
right? But like, all three of those barriers need to be broken
Yeah.
in growth. Like, eventually your BAMs should increase. Eventually you should hit a new record if that's something that's of high priority to you. As a result, your averages are going to start going up, and you're going to change.
I love that you mentioned this, and you've got these three different, like, kind of levels, I guess, for people to visualize. I think it's really important for people to remember that increasing your BAMs is pushing a limit, right? That doesn't necessarily mean it's the PR, but if you've been able to say, okay, you know what, I've been hitting 5,000 steps consecutively, even on my like 9 hours sitting at work days, and I'm going to raise that to 6,000 or 6,500, that's a pushing your limit, which I think is really cool. And let's talk about those people at the top end, right, of that ceiling that you're talking about. I find a lot of those individuals, especially in health and fitness, will sit here and be like, oh yeah, I had a weight PR at the gym, but it was only by 1 pound. And it's
Mm,
like, that's phenomenal. If you are
yeah.
crushing, a 250-pound lift and you got to 251, like, we don't stop celebrating 1 pound. Like, that is still significant.
Yep. Yep. And then just to piggyback on what you said. So say we're looking at a step count, and you've got your bare ass minimum as 5,000 steps a day. So that's 3,500 steps, 35,000 steps per week. Yep. It's like, come on, math, do your math. Um, and then, so say on like the upper end, you hit 10,000 steps some days, and then your average, we say, is 8,000 steps per day. Okay. So in that week, our average steps sit somewhere around 56,000 for the week. We don't let ourselves go below 5,000 steps even on our worst day, and our high day is around 10,000. I'm not telling you to blow that 10,000 out of the water like Kelly said. That's a recipe for injury. But when we look at your weekly total, if your weekly average is around 56,000, then when our weekly average becomes 60,000, that's hitting a new high peak. That's hitting that new record. So there's many different ways to achieve that. I'm not telling you to get out there and run 2 kilometers tonight or 20 kilometers tonight if you haven't been running. That's not the way to set a new peak for yourself. We still have to achieve that in a smart manner.
Mhm. Yeah, I really like this. I hope what people are getting out of this is looking at different areas of your life, not just one. I also really love that you brought up the three different sections so that people can really assess, like, okay, what areas do I want to be growing in conscientiously? how can I push that limit, or what particular limits can I focus on? Because we always want to chunk things down into manageable pieces and focuses, right? We don't want you doing everything all at once.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. And then even from there, when you look, so if you go into your physical fitness and you say, I want this to be an area of growth for me, that even branches down into many, many, many different areas, which you've heard us talk about. And it's like, so maybe right now I'm going to grow in my cardiovascular, I'm going to maintain in my flexibility, mobility, and I'm going to maintain in my strength training, because right now I really want to push cardiovascular. But there's that same thing applies. We can't grow in all of the areas at once optimally. You're going to injure yourself, you're going to overtrain. They're counterintuitive. So we have to pick and choose which ones we maintain in, which ones we grow in, and then over time we have to shift back and forth if we're just looking for optimal overall health and fitness. If you're not, if you just want to be the best at Spartan, then you got to look at what that plan looks like and be okay with the other areas that suffer as a result.
Mhm. Yeah, and short-term, spurts like that are great sometimes, but that's an individual decision to push those limits. Cool.
Awesome. Wrap it up.
Wrap it up. I got a tip. So you kind of brought it up partway through the show here. I wanted to just remind people, like, a little bit of a challenge to push limits. Start your day with a glass of water. We could look at this from different angles. If it's easy for you, great. You're starting it off with a win and you're getting hydrated. That's fantastic. If you're looking at pushing your limits and drinking water before coffee, great. You're eating the frog first, which is wonderful. Regardless of the approach, it's a great way to start your day.
Love it. Awesome, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Wherever you're listening right now, take a screenshot, share it to your Instagram, tag at Breaking90 Fitness, and hang around for the episode next week. Thanks for being here.